Okay, here is what you'll see when you first open the data file. And actually, though, you will see stuff in these other tabs that's not there yet. But I thought it might be good for you to see, how I made this stuff. And so I thought I'd do a video of me making the revised data. So we have our county data. Again, what we're, according to our project guide, what we're interested in is this incidence rate. And actually, I think I'll change that to an IR right now for incidence rate. And we have these various possible explanatory variables, again, that are in the project description. We have the percentage of how the county voted for Bashir, the governor. It seems like that could have an impact on the incidence rate. The population density certainly seems like it could have an impact. The median income, a lot of things tend to be attached to income levels. Now, and some of these things are related, and you'll be asked to kind of look at those things, make plots of all that. But and then here we have our uninsured proportion for each county. I thought it'd be interesting to use the, how many, what proportion of the county got their flu vaccine. Again, you would kind of think if lots of people in the county got a flu vaccine, they might be less likely to mix with each other and so forth. So their incidence rate might go down. So that seemed reasonable. Education could play a part of it. So this is the proportion with the no diplomas, and then related to that, but other things as well, or the work ready ideas, and this is that they meet the criteria in all, I think it's 5 categories or something like that. But this is the only categorical variable, but it's just at 2 levels, so we can just handle it this way as 0 and 1, and of course our incidence. And so a person doesn't have to do this, but actually with numbers so disparate in size, so here we've got a bunch of things that are 0.1 or smaller, here a bunch of things that are 0.1 or smaller, and here we're up at what, 55,000, that kind of thing. And so with numbers so disparate, a lot of times it's kind of nice to normalize your data to all be between 0 and 1. So your largest number in your column will be a 1, and your smallest something 0 or bigger. And so that's what this tab is the normalized data. And so what I'm going to do to make that is I'm first going to copy column A here, and go here and paste it. And then I'm going to go back and copy my headings up here. Copy and go back here and paste those. And now what I want to do is in here, I want to do a formula where I take the original data. So I'll go here and click on that. So there's my original data. And then what I want to do is divide by the maximum of this column. So I'm going to type in max. You can see it up here. It's kind of small, but I typed in max and the formula, and I'm going to highlight this whole thing. And close off that parenthesis. Now, the one thing I do have to worry about here is that as I copy this formula down to each cell, I don't want where it looks for the maximum to change, so I need to put dollar signs on the numbers here, on the row numbers. So there's a dollar sign and a dollar sign. But if I don't put them on the B's, I should be able to copy everything over to the right and get things that way. So, so there's my formula. I hit enter, and I get a number between 0 and 1. And now I'm going to copy that down. I can just double click on that. A lot of spreadsheets have that capability, filled it in. And you see I get the numbers in there. It should be a 1 here somewhere. And yeah, kind of makes sense. Jefferson County, highest proportion or percentage voting for Bashir. And so that looks good. And then what I can do is if I just highlight this whole thing and drag it over. I don't remember how far I have to go over. I'm going to go over one more. I'm going to keep the incidence rate, the response variable, as is. You don't have to. And of course, notice that the MC didn't change because those were all 0 1s anyway. Okay, so I've got all that data, and then here I'm just going to, I could do it a couple ways. I could use a formula and say equals, go back here, click on that, or I could just copy and paste that column. So I can get it that way as well. Okay, so there's all my data. And now what I want to do though is, and you will find that when you open this up you won't have formulas, and the reason I want to do that is if I need to delete columns or something at some point, I definitely don't want formulas. So technically I could leave them here as formulas, but I'm not going to. So the way I get rid of the formulas is I just highlight all of it, and I do a copy, and then without unhighlighting or anything, I just do a paste special and just do number, and it's giving me a warning that there's stuff already there. I say yes, and now notice if I click on this, it's just a big number. And and so we see up here it's just a number. No more formulas left. Now, and I'm going to make this look a little bit nicer. I'm going to center all of these things so that looks a little better. And these big long decimals, I don't really see a need for that. And so I'm going to format that. Oh, okay, here. So I added some decimal places. Now I'm going to try to take them away. I think I'll just do it at 3 decimal places. Okay, so that looks a lot better. And I'll save my work. Okay, so I have that. Now what I want to do is toss in all the possible interactions. Okay, so that's just there. And that's a lot of numbers, okay, because I'll have the BP here interacting with PD, MI, UP, FV, ND, NC, MC. Not IR, but I'll have interactions with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variables. And then PD will have the original interaction here with the BP, but then it will have, I'll have to add in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more interactions. So I'll have to add in for this column 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so adding those all up, that is 7 times 6 is 42, divided by 2 is 21. So I'll have 21 interactions that I'll have to do. Okay, so I'll have these and then those 21 interactions. So what I'll do, now I could just copy this sheet and go from there, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to highlight all the explanatory variables plus the county name and do a copy. I'm going to go here and paste. And then now I'm going to end up, I've made this kind of big so it's easier to see on the screen, but now I'm going to make it a little smaller so we can see more columns. So I've taken it down to 100%, so it's getting harder to see what's in there. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight a whole bunch of columns. That's, I'm sure, enough because I only needed 21. Well, I needed 21. Oh, that's Z's 26, and I already had some columns, so this I think this will do it. But now I'm going to change the column width from the default to something a little smaller. Mine says 0.89. I'm going to go with 0.5, just so I can see more at once. And so now I'm going to put in labels for these things. And so I've got BP times PD, because that's what I'm going to do, is do multiplications in there. So BP PD, and then BP MI, BP UP, BP, so it's just, I'm going to do all those multiplications, FV, BP ND, and BP MC. Okay, so that took care of those interactions, but now I have the PD, and of course I've already done PD and BP, so now I need PD and MI, PD and UP, PD and FV, PD and ND, and PD and MC. Now, I could pause and fill in more stuff so that you don't have to watch me, but I guess if it's, you know, if you think you've got it, you can always fast forward a bit, speed it up, and it's probably not a bad way to listen to me anyway. But I'm going to keep recording through the whole thing here. MIUP, MIFV, MIND, and MIMC. And then I need UP, FV, UPND, UPMC, and now I'm to the FV, so FV ND and FVNC. So I've got that one. MC. And then finally the last interaction, ND with MC. Okay, so I have that, and now I'll put my incidence rate right here. And again, I'm gonna just take a moment to have all these things centered. Again, here, if I want, I can just go back here and copy all those data. So I'll do a Control C for my copy and a Control V here for my paste. So I have that, but now I've got to fill all this in. So again, I'll try to do it where I do things a little smarter in that I know I'm going to take BP for these first 6 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 6 columns, I'm going to always take BP and then times the next thing there. So I'll have equals, and I'll click on that because I want to take that. But what I don't want to have change is the B. So I'm going to put a $ on that, and then say times and PD. Hit enter, and I'll double click on this and it'll fill it in all the way down. And then the nice part is once that's filled in, if I just pull over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that fills in correctly the right address. So if you look up here, it's now B2 times D2, and then this one is B2 times E2, and so forth all the way over. And so now I have to do that same kind of formula again, but now this is doing the PD. So PD times the MI there, D2. But again, to make my life a little easier, I'll just take a moment to put a $ there. I will copy that down and then pull it over, instead of 5 more, just 4 more. And I can tell I am in the right spot because I see all these zeros from multiplying by the zeros and ones. So I've got that one. Then equals, and now this is the MI times the UP, and again I need a $ on the D, and copy that down. So, you know, it takes a little time, but it's not a real big deal to do this. I just have to keep doing that formula over and over. So equals, and what am I up to here? UP. So UP times the FV, and again I'll do my $ and get that all the way down and pull that over 2 more. So almost there. Equals, and I've got my FV times the ND. So this is how, again, how I get my interaction terms. And I'll hit enter. Pull that one over. And notice I've got a few more I've got an extra decimal place, but I'm not going to worry about that. Well, I don't know, I guess I could. So equals, my last one, now I don't need $ on this because I'm not going to copy it over anywhere. I'm just going to copy it down. Okay, and there's all my data, but yeah, if I want, I can highlight all of that and get my decimal, well, yeah, I guess as long as I have it here, I will. So I'm clicking the minus, I'm not seeing anything happen, so I'll click the plus once and then try it. Oh yeah, it might not be doing that because I've got some text in there. So yeah, I won't worry about it right now. But once again, you know, these are all formulas. You won't have them as formulas when you get them because I'm going to copy them all here. So do a copy, and then I'm going to just do a paste special with number and say yes, and now those are all numbers. Okay, and so there are the data we can work with to start doing our linear least squares. Now, one thing when you start working on the least squares, something that's helpful is to actually number your columns. And so this sheet, I'm going to insert a row above, and I'm just going to number these columns. So I'm going to grab that one, pull it over to the 28 there. I don't need a number on the incidence rate. So now I have that, and then what I'm going to do is set up my output. So, oh yeah, these column widths, I probably want to do a whole bunch more. So column width, because of my output from the least squares, so 0.5. And I come back here, and now to do the least squares, what I'm going to do is keep track of my columns. And the thing we have to remember on least squares is that the output puts the columns in reverse order. And so I'm going to highlight those two and drag this down until I get to 0, where 0 is the intercept. Oh, and do two more columns here of getting the column width smaller. So 0.5. Okay. So now you see I know how far to go for my least squares. So I will go, I need to go down 5 rows. I think I have. I'll probably have to look at it when I get over here. So I highlight my 2, 4, 5 rows, and I start typing equals lin est open parenthesis, and now I need my response variable. So that is my incidence rate. That should say IR, not RI. So there's my incidence rate, comma, and then I need all my data here. So that's a lot of it, a lot of columns. It's taking a minute, but there we go. I've highlighted all those. And then I do a comma 1 and a 1 after another comma, close parenthesis, do my Control Shift Enter, and there I've got my least squares. Now here I'll put that that's my R squared, and it did the capitalization itself. Now, I need my t statistic, so here's my t stat. And again, it capitalized it, I didn't. So I need equals the absolute value, so ABS, of the coefficient. And then divided by its standard error. Okay, and I hit enter, and then I'll get p-value, and for my p-value, I'll make that just a little wider there. I could probably statistic. It's, oh yeah, it did capitalize the P. I was going to say, that's funny, it didn't capitalize the P, but it did. So my p-value, I have to look up my t distribution, and I take the t value, comma, I need the degrees of freedom. Now I'm going to copy this over, so I don't want that AG to change, so I'm going to put a $ on the AG. and then I need my number of tails, and I want a two-tailed distribution. So I hit enter, and you see it's this huge p-value, but now I can highlight both of those and drag those over. And I get all my p-values and so forth, many of which are quite big. Okay, now here I'm going to do my k for how many columns I have, k equals, and to do that I can just do a count of all these numbers. I'm going to use all these numbers up here. Okay, so I have that. Now that included the intercept, but I am going to include that. I'm just going to count that whole thing. So I close that off and then say -1 because I don't want to count the intercept. And you see we get 28. And so then my adjusted r squared, I can do that, and that is 1 minus, so I need to take 1 minus our r squared up here, so 1 minus the r squared. Oops, I didn't put an equals in there, so I was very confused. Okay, so equals 1 minus, and then 1 minus my r squared. And then I need to take my, multiply that, the 1 minus the r squared, by n minus 1, which is the 18, and then divided by that same 18 minus my k. And we'll get a really odd thing here. We get an adjusted r squared that's bigger than 1. And, well, that's because we have more columns than we have data. Or wait, no, we don't have more columns than data, but we have more columns than degrees of freedom. Yeah, data we have, 47 counties that we're using. But our degrees of freedom are only 18, and but k is 28. So you get these weird things with the adjusted r squared. So it's going to start out bigger than 1 in this case. When you finally get it down to matching the degrees of freedom, it will be undefined. No, it won't be undefined. I guess it should match the r squared up here. And then once we have fewer columns than our degrees of freedom, then we'll start seeing meaningful r squareds for us. And okay, so I'm going to save that. And now this is ready for the final worksheet tab here. And actually what I'm going to do, I put that there so so you would kind of see it and see it's blank. But what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to copy this sheet and turn it into that worksheet one. Okay, so I am going to first delete the worksheet sheet. And now I'm going to copy this one, make a copy, move it to the end, and I'm going to call it worksheet. There we go. And say OK. And there I have the worksheet. And this is what you will find when you open your data file. You will find these 4 tabs. For the most part, the only one you're going to really need to be worried about is this worksheet tab. It has the numbers and so forth you need, And so now we'll end this video and do another video on what we're actually doing with the worksheet. So that'll do it.